Mark.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for joining us on this fantastic Friday afternoon as we get a chance to talk, more about our report in the studio. And Noel March and Chris Kirkconnell will be our guests. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you not only for laughing, but hopefully for living and being a very, very invaluable contributor to our society. I'm honored to be able to welcome to our studio again Mr. Chris Kirkconnell and Noel March as we continue the dialogue about our port project. Chris, always a pleasure, man. I agree with Noel. If our cameras can be trained on you only, our listeners and our viewers will just, our eyes will be that much more appeased.
Love you too, Sterling.
Hey, family, my friend. Come on now. What do you expect, an easy pass? No, but it's good to be able to live in a small community like this where, for the most part, we know each other. We know, at the end of the day, that we're in this together, whatever this is. Cheering for the same team or maybe sharing a slice of cassava cake. There's only a corner. So, Chris, welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. And with today being International Teachers Day, before we get into anything else, I want to definitely thank all the teachers, especially here growing up. If I could shout out a couple of names, Miss Campbell and the late Miss Joyce Scott were a huge impact on me growing up. So, thanks to them and tribute to them on a day to remember and recognize. I
appreciate that, man, because I don't fear, but I suspect if I were accused of being political when it comes to education, I probably would be the one area, because as you shared, without our teachers, without our involvement of our parents in education, where would we be? It doesn't matter where we are now. It's that guidance, that nurturing. So even we didn't get too lost.
It's a highly noble profession, and one that you don't truly appreciate until you get older and you're raising your own children. Something that I would say to every adult, but every parent in particular, take a class if you're so inclined, maybe for a semester, if you have a small time, even assistant, and teach a subject that you may like. Be a part of a club, after school, before school, and help to guide and nurture, separate apart from what you may do as a coach or, in your youth group. Because those students having to work with them on a particular academic, artistic project, wow, you see the challenges. Now, with that, those students of today are going to be our future leaders of today as well, because they're going to influence us in many ways and certainly impact us of tomorrow. Chris, when we look at the proposed port project, I mean, as a businessman, as a strong member of our community, what's your perspective?
I mean, for us, we've worked in the cruise industry since its infancy in Cayman, and so for us, we have a pretty good idea of how impactful it is between the number of people we're able to employ, the opportunities we're able to give for, especially Caymanians. Our company has always been majority Caymanian employees, anywhere between 65 and 75% Caymanian employees. I think it's known that the cruise industry or the cruise sector in Cayman for tourism employs in general more Caymanians than stay over. It's something that I think has a wide impact on the community, and we have seen in the peak of when cruise tourism was really at its maximum, and we employed up to almost 350 people at one time. I think now we're down to about 250, which is partly due to some of the change in the cruise as far as the volume goes. So it does impact jobs. It has impacted already. This last year we did see quite an increase due to ships being redirected. But there definitely will be. I know that there's a lot of discussion back and forth as to what the impact will be and what will happen. I think we at some point, I think cruise berthing will have to be achieved in one way or the other if we want to continue with cruise. It would be better for us as a country to try to figure it out before we head down to a slope where you almost can't come back from, or that alternates pop up. Cruise will never fully leave Cayman. That's not something that I think this group or anyone involved with cruise has ever said. We just know very point blank what the cruise industry is saying, what they have shown us. The Oasis ships launched in 2009. And after playing chicken or trying to call their bluff for almost a decade later, they haven't wavered. So it's not take my word for it. I think that there's enough evidence out there to show that they don't intend to bring those ships into docks that don't have tenders. It's not a matter of either of do the tenders in Cayman do a good job or not. I mean, I've been on the tenders. The captain, the crew, they're amazing. The ships are kept immaculate. The boats are kept immaculately. They do a great job, very professional. The operation is almost seamless. They're doing as good as they possibly can in that mode of transportation. It's just not something that the cruise lines are willing to consider for that size of a ship. And even for the smaller ships, it's just not. It isn't the most efficient. There are drawbacks to the efficiency of getting people on and off with tenders, and that has nothing to do with the skill of the captains or the crew or the operators, the owners. I mean, they're probably one of the best run companies that I've seen. They are very extremely well presented, very professional in everything that they do. It just is the nature of what we're looking at. It's not a personal thing. And kind of continuing on from that, I think that's something that a lot of people seem to want to push is that there's an Adrian Briggs and Atlee Bodden versus the Kirkconnells in this debate, and our families have been friends for years, and I always hope to continue to be friends. And a lot of negative things get thrown out there, and it's not for both sides. I'm sure it's not nice to hear, no matter who the source is. But that's really not what this is about. It's not about any families versus the other. It's really, there are differences of opinion of groups of people as to which way we should go and what makes the most sense for Cayman, and that's what we're here to do. It's not a mudslinging contest, and I think it's something that we need to try to have healthy debate on and not try to degrade each other, not try to put it in that direction.
Now, from that perspective, as we continue the discussion, in regards to the ships that do call our ports, what is the largest capacity ship that we have now? I mean, how many people are looking at? Probably
about 4,500.
The new MSC.
Yeah. And then the Seaside would be the largest, which is closer to 4.5.
Mm-hmm. And then comparing that to, say, the Oasis, those mega ships that we're talking about.
Those are 6,000 plus.
Okay, so 1,500, 2,000 extra people, but in terms of gross tonnage and stuff, a much larger vessel.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No.
You need to keep in mind though that ships in the past had been taken off the Western itinerary to accommodate the Oasis when it came online. So there was a drop in numbers that was never made back up when Oasis came out. We've been, like as Chris said, it's been 9 years, almost 10 years, and the ship hasn't come here.
All right. Now, earlier, Chris, you referenced the percentage of Caymanians who are in the cruise-related sector versus the steel sector. From that perspective, just your own maybe insight, the percentage of Caymanians who are in the cruise sector versus the steel, if you were to break tourism down in that, what sort of difference are you looking at? 10% in one and 1% in the other, 50% in one and 5% in the other? What do you think?
I mean, I can't say that any of the hotels per se. So if we look at that, are going to have given exact percentages. But I think being in overall, I mean, almost every business that I've talked to in Georgetown, whether it's us or Tortuga or any of the souvenir stores, for the most part, those are all north of 60-70% Caymanian. But then when you get into the bulk of the employment, it's the operators, the tour operators, the taxi operators, the buses, and that I would have to say you're probably well north of
close to 100%.
It's got to be 80-90% of those. So
the taxi operators, the tour operators, those that go to the land, sea, and the like.
Very much so. Yeah. The great majority of those, like I said, 90% plus.
Right. So for those who say, well, economically, more numbers of cruise partners should equate to more numbers of customers for the operators, the shops, the retailers, the tours. So therefore, makes better buying from at the end of the day. Fair generalization?
And you also see a lot more business owners. So not just employees. A lot of the hotels, I think you'd struggle to, outside of the Dart Group, who now owns several of the hotels, you'd probably struggle to find a lot of those companies that are Caymanian owned based, and that the investment and the returns stay fully in the island. Most of the operators and so on in the cruise industry, it's owners and operators themselves that are out there. Caymanian owners, I think you'd find it pretty hard to put your hand on international owners that are handling most of the cruise business.
Yes, because there's a lot of small business opportunities, and I'm an example of that. Chris and his family, they're actually, even though they're quite a big organization, they're in the minority. They're just very noticeable, their presence. But as Chris said earlier, and I'll echo it again, the majority of his employees are Caymanian. And a lot of people, the general public, don't realize that, because maybe they'll encounter a salesperson from some other part of the world, but they don't realize that the great majority of the solid jobs, all the back office jobs,
it's almost all of our executive positions, anything where promotions are involved to higher levels of management, it's almost all Caymanian. You will see some, a mix of Caymanian and expat or permit holders on the sales floor sometimes, even though oftentimes salespeople are making a lot more than a lot of people in the office, just because of the nature of commission structure and being able to sell. The majority of our employees have always been Caymanian.
Now, we look at the increase in our tourism, stayover, as well as every sector as a result of the weather conditions in the Caribbean recently. If you were to project going forward, when those islands will recover and rebuild, what do you see the new normal looking like? Will Cayman have this continued, market share? Will it go back to where we were?
I think that it was made quite clear the other night at the meeting that the government had by the cruise official that was there. He stated, I think, over the next 3 to 5 years, Royal's plans may see their numbers drop from, I believe it's 450,000 a year to 250,000, and those are definitely not the cruise passengers that we want to lose.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're talking about stayover, I mean, I'm hoping that I'm hoping we'll be able to keep some of the market share that we may have been able to introduce people that people are humans have habits, and so if you're used to going to, let's say, St. Martin, if you're used to going to St. Thomas, if you're used to going to BVI, you often return there. With that not being an option, I think that we had a lot of people that hadn't seen Cayman for the first time, and this is we operate stores in 2 of the hotels as well, and some of the feedback that we got was that people, finding Cayman for the first time, and it really opened their eyes. So I think that is also part of what you're seeing in the boom in real estate, is people that were not exposed to Cayman that are now realizing, hey, this is something special here. This is hopefully we generate more interest for them to keep coming back. I mean, some of it will have to move back as they get their hotels and so on back into operation. You will naturally see competition spread things out to a certain degree, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to continue, at least to maintain, if not to grow some as some of the new facilities open.
All right. When we come back from the break, Chris Colonel, Noella March joins us. We'll pick up some callers on line 949-8837 or 1-800-534-8255. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
It is your time, Cayman Islands. Have a voice in the future of Cayman's cruise industry at the opposition's continuing series of meetings. Get accurate information and have your say. Is Cayman maintaining its competitive edge? Is docking more efficient and workable than tender service? What drives passenger satisfaction and return visits? Get the facts and help keep Cayman's cruise industry bright. Join the opposition for Phase 2 of the island-wide meetings at 7:30 p.m. Monday, October 8th, West Bay Primary School Hall. Tuesday, October 9th, South Sound Community Hall. Wednesday, October 10th, the Seafarers Association's Meeting Hall, Prospect. It is your time, Cayman Islands. Your time to have your say. The opposition, safeguarding our future.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Honey, our fridge has stopped working again. Everything in the freezer is melting. We need to get this repaired right away. I'm calling Brand Source Service.
When you need the very best appliance service, call Brand Source Service at 623-5000. Offering service and installation of all brands and models of appliances. Brand Source Service is Cayman's source for appliance parts and repairs with qualified and experienced technicians and the island's largest stock of appliance parts. Brand Source Service will have your repair completed in a flash. So, whatever the problem is, call the experts at 623-5000. Brand Source Service, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Telephone 623-5000.
Not all insurance is created equal, but who has the time to shop around? Take the guesswork out of your insurance coverage with Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Let us match you with the best coverage to suit your needs at a price to suit your wallet. Plus, get superior customer service from dedicated claims professionals to ensure speedy claims processing. Get your insurance through Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Pet owners are responsible for the protection of their pets during disaster events. If you plan to evacuate, plan for your pet as well, because they are not allowed in public emergency shelters. If you go to friends or relatives, and if it's okay to take your pets, also take your pet survival kit as well. Your kit should include proper ID, collar and tag, carrier or cage, leash, at least 2 weeks supply of moist pet food to preserve water or food bowls, any necessary medications, and plenty of newspaper for sanitary purposes and disinfectant. After the disaster, be careful in allowing your pets outside. Downed power lines, damaged buildings, and other animals and insects brought with the disaster could also present real dangers to your pet. Also, take care not to allow your pet to consume food or water which may have become contaminated.
This is brought to you by the Barbados Government Information Service and Breeze 105.3.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8837 or 1-800-534-8255. In the studio, Mr. Chris Kirkconnell and Mr. Noel March are our guests, and as we talk about the proposed port project. Gents, we do have a caller online. Hey, welcome. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, interesting. I think that was a lunch order. And just said nope. With the rain, no, just kidding. Technology sometimes, things just happen as you click. Well, our caller is welcome to call back, so anybody else who wishes. But as we're talking about the port and the like, and we go to connect up with this next caller, I want to ask a couple of things in relation to so that we have, as best as possible, an understanding of where we are, what is it that we're talking about, and perhaps where that would affect us. A question that was asked and shared sometimes. Chris, you were referencing the efficiency of tendering versus perhaps a dock. It was said that the government study showed no significant difference between how fast and efficient it takes to get off one way or the other. your view is, well, not as efficient.
So my understanding of what what was studied and what the difference is being able to step off of the ship and walk ashore versus just the actual tendering process. So the movement of the boat, that tender boat, from the ship to the shore. Mm-hmm. And you might not see massive amounts of difference in the actual movement of that process. Where you're going to see the backlog and what really restricts the flow is the process that happens behind the door of the ship and in the port when you're waiting in line. So it's not necessarily that you're gaining, that it takes an hour for that tender ship to get from shore to ship. It's that half hour, 40 minutes, especially when everyone in the peak times of people trying to get off of the ship or get back onto the ship, that people are stuck just in the process of queuing up to try to either get on or get off. And, we've had pictures, videos, experiences with, people stacked 3 decks deep into the ship waiting to get out through the tender door. It takes time. I mean, just an example. Probably about 6-8 months ago, I went on board one of the ships with my kids. I've gotten to know some of the captains pretty well, being in the business and working with them on a daily basis, and was invited to come on board to have lunch. And so I said, you know what, since it doesn't happen very often, I'll bring the kids. It was in the morning, so I was going the opposite way of the traffic. I had escort through security to go there was no line because we were going back onto the ship at a time when passengers were getting off. And I kind of noticed that even though we're not waiting in line, we still had to wait for people to come off of that tender to be able to then board. And it can take 10, 15 minutes to get everybody off of that tender. So that's 10, 15 minutes just in getting people off. Then you have the ride out, and then you have to get onto the ship. Now, that was me with help to get through, not waiting in a line, not having to cross any major security lines to get through the check. I had an escort in to be able to get onto the ship. It still takes extra time because there is that process of whether you're waiting in a line to get to the ship or waiting for the tender to offload. It just adds much more than people are giving credit to. So knowing that I was going the opposite way of the traffic, and knowing that I had extra help in getting there straight to the front of the line, you can still see if I was able to walk straight out, I would have been there in 10 minutes as opposed to having to wait 15, 20 minutes and then get on and take the ride out. And so I think that, what was studied is the actual process, but not the background processes. And that's what I think makes the biggest difference.
With respect to that, when we're on the ship, we're coming ashore as cruise passengers, with the docks, when they're constructed, where, for the most part, will our passengers be walking from? Will they be from where the tenders now, pick them up at the ships and ferry them into shore? Will it be closer? Will it be further out? What's that distance?
I think that until you see exactly what that final design is, it could only be a guess. And I wouldn't want to. I try to make a habit of not saying things that I can't back up and not put out information that you can't say is valid. So I'd hate to say what that distance is or what the exact time is. I know just in talking even straight with the captains of these ships, and again, the same captain that I went out to have lunch with, a week or two ago, I sent him a quick message just saying, just from your perspective, what is the difference and what's easier? Is it docking compared to using the tender? His response, which obviously is quite inflated, was it's 100,000 times easier if you have a dock. Obviously, that's exaggerated, but he was trying to get the point across that it's just from a logistics procedure, it's so much easier to pull up. He said you have so many less safety concerns. He says, at anchor, he's constantly in the bridge. They've got to keep the boat up. So whether you're anchored or just at engine, there's a constant process is keeping the ship where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. He said you're burning diesel all day long. You don't. He said there's just so much more that it takes whether you're anchored or at engine than if you're safely tied up to the dock.
So the process then, if there's a dock, they'll pull in, shut the engines down. Will they need a tug to get in, as some have asked, or to just put up like how we would when we go into mooring, just pull it in? How does that work?
Looking at some of the responses from Baird, They didn't recommend tugs. I think you have to have tugs on hand for safety, just in case there was any kind of a failure, or just for the for marine practice. You have to have safeguards. They didn't, but it sounded like they weren't recommending tugs to be used. I think a lot of these ships have bow thrusters and azimuth drive engines, so they can turn the propellers in any direction to try to stabilize themselves. So that sounded like what they were recommending as the main mode of docking and deberthing.
So with this discussion and the idea that we haven't seen a final design, whether one is prepared on the drawings, whichever, but not knowing what that final design would be like, the concerns people express with respect to impact on the environment, the financial considerations, all the other things, is that still moot, or can we move forward in the absence of a final design and say, yep, this is where we should be, this is what we're doing?
I mean, I can go back to some of the responses that Baird has, because this was asked after the EIA came out, and they did give responses. I think even our own DOE has commented that if there is going to be berthing, Georgetown is where it should be. One, because we've been anchoring and dropping on the coral for the last several decades. So a lot of the impact for a site that's been a commercial port over that many years, a lot of the damage has already been done. I think the big concern is not necessarily what's out in front of the harbor, which is where the dredging will be, because a lot of that has been compromised over years of operating a commercial seaport. I think the big concern is what will happen to the neighboring areas, to the neighboring reefs, and it is a concern. There's no one is going to say that you can just go and start operating and building, and that you don't have to do as much as you possibly can to make sure that doesn't happen. But at the meeting the other night, something that was stated was that people are discounting the fact that there will be a management and oversight group that is not involved with necessarily the contractor that would be building the dock. There has to be an environmental team that is constantly monitoring, constantly diving, checking the turbidity, the stirring of the silt. It's in a lot of the documentation. If that does happen, there are mechanisms to be able to say, we need to stop, let things settle. There are constant monitoring of the situation to make sure that you do the least possible impact that you can. It's down to it's not just a matter of do it and do it at any cost. You have to do it and do it the right way. And I think that it's silly for anyone to say that if we're involved with tourism, that we don't care what happens to the marine environment. Everyone knows that we're an island. A big part of our tourism is on the water. I grew up on the water, whether it be fishing, snorkeling. It's a big part of what we do as Caymanians. It's a big part of what we love about being here. No one wants to see that destroyed. I think that we all want to make sure that it's done the right way.
No, that's definitely a concern that we all have. The environment has to come first, but we have to be realistic as well, to be able to maintain sensible growth and opportunities for our people. I've been involved with both cruise and stayover, and you have to have a balance. And I appreciate the environment just as much as anyone else.
All right. Now, with respect to if there's a dock and the ship, is docked, the passengers, there are those who have a perspective that the cruise passengers will just come and go as and when they want. If they're milling around the town area, they want to go back on, come off. Is that the case with respect to how easy and efficient it is to get on and off? Or
I think that when in general people want to see the destination, they want to be a part of the destination. The same people that say, oh, well, they'll just go back on board are the same people that are saying, well, there's no difference in the time it takes to get on and off from a dock or a tender. You can't have it both ways. You either have to decide it's easier to use a dock or it's not, and people will or won't go back on. There are many ports with data showing the spend of passengers that are a great deal higher than what we're seeing in Cayman that have docks.
Right.
Most of the islands have docks, and they're seeing that higher spend. I don't think that higher spend is happening because people are going back on the boat. That higher spend is happening because they have more time on shore and more time in the port.
Perhaps for those of us who maybe can benefit more from a better explanation, if there's a dock right there, is it then that people can move on and off as they want, or is that security process and time to see whether you're coming off for the first time and going back on?
Well, that would just be up to whatever their individual schedule is.
No.
I would think that the cruise ship is just as now. If you want to go back earlier in the middle of the day on a tender, you can do it the same way as if there would be a dock. I think you can move as you want. It's just a matter of watching the tendencies of people that when they come off of the ship, they came off to be on shore.
Right, but the process to go back on, if it's a dock, there's still a process.
It would be easier. The same way that we're saying it's easier to get off of the ship, get onto the ship. The opportunity is there, and I think some people probably will. I think the vast majority of what you do see in other ports is that people come off and they spend the whole day at that location.
The one thing that I personally have witnessed with regards to what you're talking about there is that people, they're not relaxed with the tendering. A lot of times they'll come into the store and they're all looking at their watch and they're anxious, and you want someone to be relaxed. You don't want them to be in a rush. And they're concerned about getting back to the terminal, queuing up, so that make sure you don't miss the last tender. That weighs on people's minds. You want them to be thinking about shopping. You want them to be thinking about the destination.
Why are they anxious to
we see it every day in the stores. I mean, people, they come back from a tour, they come into the store, and you can see them constantly. Okay, like it's a rush. It's they're trying to figure out. Do I have time? Do I not? And you're in a foreign country. You're dependent on that ship, and that ship is leaving, and you don't. The same as you go to an airport. I mean, you're sitting. You don't show up to the gate as the door opens. You're waiting there. You're ready to go back. You don't want to miss.
Fair enough. And so, whether there's a tender or a dock, there's still a security process to get on and off.
There will be. I mean, and knowing because we work with the ships on a daily basis, there is a talk or the ship wants to leave on time.
Yeah.
And so, knowing that the tender process does take longer, people are given notice before leaving the ship. Make sure that, and they call it the last tender time, and they often give that last tender time well ahead of when is the last opportunity to get back onto the ship, because they want to make sure people are.
Captains want to see you. All right. So Chris Kirkconnell and Noel March are our guests. Gents, as we talk about the port, can I read WhatsApp for those who want to share? 949-8037 or 1-800-534-TALK, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Says this listener writes, says, I have done 7 cruises to date. In most ports that I could walk on and off, I returned to the ship for lunch. Says, I never went back to the shops until my time, or to the ship until my time on land was up in the places that use tenders. So to your point then, if they're there with the tenders, they come on and stay on shore and then they go back. With the ports where there were docks, they would go on and off as they wanted.
I think that there will be some people that do. Just showing from data that's out there, typically you see more of an opportunity when people have more time on shore to be able to. That individual, everybody has a choice, and they may have decided, I want to go back onto the ship for lunch. I think in general what you see is the majority of people want to enjoy as much time in the destination as they can. And something that we don't see here in Cayman as much, because the ships have to keep either on the anchor or at engine, is that while there may be 4,000 passengers on the ship, there's 1,500 staff on the ship. Most of that staff has to stay operating the ship to keep it on anchor when you're not at a dock. When you're at the dock, a lot of those operations can shut down, and you see probably by the data that was shown, almost 3 times a higher crew spend. And a lot of these crew, they enjoy, they're on the ship on 4 to 6 month spurts. They want to enjoy the destinations too, because they're on a ship constantly. So they want to go to the bars, the restaurants. They want to enjoy, have some different food than what they find on the ship. Enjoy a drink somewhere, and just enjoy, and get off of the ship and spend some time off. And you see a lot that is spent in crew, almost to the level of what you see in the actual passengers. And Cayman showing that our spend is about a third of what you see in most of the other destinations. There's a lot of potential there that you can make up, if not grow on, from anyone that might decide to go back on board for lunch.
So numerically, just to repeat, a third of a spend in Cayman versus other places.
Yes.
Wow. 100,000 Cayman?
Well, the crew, I think it was about, from off the top of my head, was somewhere in the $55 a day range, whereas in places like St. Martin, St. Thomas, you're talking more in the $120, $130 type of a range.
Okay. Now, with that, and as we look at the idea of the berthing and the like, the cruise lines, their investment and involvement, to what extent do you think that would dictate them being a part of the process, or should it be the country to build and they'll come, or should it be the other way around? Well,
it's a joint effort. You know, you have to work together with them. You know, they're your industry partner. Obviously, they are the ones that are bringing the ship and bringing the customers, but you're providing the destination. So you work together and you try to work out what's in the best interest of both parties for the long term. And anything you can do to guarantee you getting sustainable numbers and consistent numbers, it just makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the government has a pretty good and solid formula as to what will make this the right investment and the right way forward for Cayman. And we've seen several other proposals for cruise berthing, most of which incorporated building almost an entire town, sometimes a casino, sometimes a hotel, out on top of the port. This is the first time that the government has said we want to make sure that it benefits town, so not build a new town out on top of the port, but really try to help what is already built as the infrastructure for downtown. It's the first time that they have said we want cruise involvement to make sure that they're tied in. They've said we don't want to have government guarantees. We're not going to take on any debt. It almost sounds like something that's impossible. Like it's like a dream to come up with all of these. What is the best that we could do for ourselves, and actually make it happen? To have people that are interested shows that we are getting the most that we possibly can out of this, especially compared to any of those other plans. And I do have some of those pictures on file. I'd be happily send them through to you. You can see almost every other berthing proposal, whether it be DECO, GLF, or the China Harbor. All of them had land reclamation that went well across the Cheeseburger Reef, towards the north to create a huge yacht basin, a lot more reclaimed out of the land, and they were all in a lot shallower water, so it meant a lot more dredging.
They also all had upland. They all had significant upland, which, as Chris was saying, you don't want to put something there that's going to compete with the people who are already trying to make a living.
All right. So before we go to the caller, the opposition leader has shared that there's 7 acres, or a number of dredging area. What is that for? Do we know if it's not for upland or competing with the town, the developments? Do we know?
I mean, to see the exact plan of the dock is something that we still have to see, but we know that it has been specified that there is to be no upland development. There are a lot of prerequisites that have been that we understand are in place for this dock, and if anyone varies from that, I would imagine that it would disqualify the bid. Okay. It's one of the big points, including no guarantees by government. That it's all I can go by is what I know is what I'm hearing is in the bid package. So if it varies from that, it wouldn't be qualifying. All right,
Jess, we do have a caller online, Noel March, Chris Colonel, our guest. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
And good afternoon to you, Jess. Actually, I just turned on my radio, and apparently you're talking about the port. I just want to excuse me for being ignorant, please. Excuse me. How often do you guys go out to the waterfront there and do scuba diving and snorkeling and so forth? How often do you guys go out there?
The last time that I was out there myself was probably maybe 10 months ago, 11 months ago.
Okay, and what does it look like out there? Is it really dead reef coral out there, or is still some sort of alive?
Well, I didn't actually go right in front of the harbor where all of the dredging is supposed to be. That, for the most part, is not somewhere that you can swim when ships are in port, or that the facilities are being used by cargo. I did snorkel around by Eden Rock, and I know for sure there's the reefs are not anchored on there. most of what we're talking about is that where the actual dredging will happen, where the actual project will happen, that's where the major compromising has happened to the marine environment. If you look at some of the studies, it shows, even in the responses by Baird, that a large percentage of what is in front of the port is either hard pan or sand bottom. And I think that, I don't think that anybody on our side is trying to say that there aren't thriving reefs in the area on the outside of the harbor. And I think that's why we are here to say that we want to make sure that government is held to protecting those areas and mitigating as much as possible, trying to put what's in place to monitor, to make sure that we aren't just stirring everything up and covering it all over the place. That's what a lot of these mitigation processes will have to be, is to make sure that we keep what makes the living part of the harbor still viable.
Mr. Cocorno, are they going to put any shops on this cruise crossing, and the shops will be up there?
From everything that we've heard in what was put into the bid packages, says that there is going to be no upland development. So unless things have drastically changed, I know that even up until yesterday, Minister Hugh was on the radio saying there will be no upland development, which means no shops on the pier, which would mean not introducing a whole new town out on the dock itself. They keep telling us that even up until last night, within the last 24 hours. So I can only hold to what their word is, that's what it is.
Exactly. Now, are the pre-books going to be going up on the pier to pick up, or are they going to all walk onto land and be picked up,
That would be a question for I think for those who actually design the dock. I have never been intimately involved with any of those kind of details to have any clue other than knowing what you know. So I think that anyone to make a guess at it would just be a guess.
From what I understand, which was said by Mr. Woods at the meeting, who was the acting port director, that there's going to be facilities to deal with both pre-book and walk-off.
But wouldn't you be interested to know if they're going to really be walking off the pier onto land, and then they take their buses and go where they got to go, and then come and do their shopping while vacationing? Because that is a very big concern that I would think, because there's something in my road that these guys should probably end up driving to the pier to pick up. I don't have no proof now, don't get me wrong, please. But one thing here in the mile road in Cayman is practically up there in air. But what I'm trying to say is, if the bus is going to drive to the ship to pick up, and then go and do the tours and come back and drive back to the ship, then that tells me there could be a few shops here and there. But I just want to say, I'm just wondering, how are we going to accommodate these boats with more buses and more tours, and how are we going to adjust downtown Georgetown? That's what I would like to know, because right now, what we got coming in, sometimes we can't even accommodate them. For example, the turtle farm, they're talking about how the turtle farm can accommodate. Is not the capacity. Turtle farm got some those stores down there. They're either 4 quarters put together. No disrespect to turtle farm. I'm a taxi driver. I am concerned. We do need a port, but I am not to downtown Georgetown. But I guess my little voice don't mean nothing to who feel like they're bigger than me, which they had needed my vote, many more people of the island vote to get where they are today in the House. So I'm just saying to you guys, I just ask you all, because from a business point of view, for you all especially, to please look at this in air capacity. Just don't take everybody's words that they're telling you. You need to see it on paper, because, Mr. Cocorno, you know that your father been downtown Georgetown for many years. Norbert Thompson and many other big business people was downtown Georgetown. And you have a big company down there and some other people. That if they were going to build a port, it should have been built a long time. And I just want to say, if this port ever built, what's going to happen to our divers from Sunset House go all the way down to Lobster Port? That is my concern. If anything was to happen weather-wise to these people and how effective they're going to be, because down on the 7 Mile, they got these marks in the water. You can't go here and you can't go there. How is it going to affect these other little small business people? And no disrespect to anyone, I feel that Cayman has solar of us left, right, and center. And if we're going to go now and take and build a pier that some company wants to hold for 20, 25 years, Mr. Cocorno, what benefit is that going to be to the people of the Cayman Islands if they ever turn it over to the Cayman Islands? And one of the small clause in it, you know how America is with China, and they're talking about China's not involved and this and that. But I just ask you guys to please turn every corner and every quarter and every penny for your children, children, children. I thank you all for listening to my big mouth. Thank you, and all have a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. And gents, as you go through our news, maybe you can share your comments after, or you want to quickly add your comment. All right. 949-8037. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
A 21-year-old Buddentown man has been formally charged with robbery in relation to an incident in Everglow Bar on Saturday, September 29th. Shortly after 2 a.m, officers went to the bar to investigate a report of a man threatening a woman with a knife to get her handbag. Police said the man took the bag with cash inside and then ran towards East End. The victim was not injured during the incident. The suspect, however, has been charged with robbery and refusal to provide a urine specimen. He also has been charged and appeared in court on Wednesday in relation to another burglary on October 1st. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, France has opened an investigation into the disappearance of Meng Hongwei, the Chinese head of the international police agency Interpol. His family have not heard from him since he left Interpol headquarters in the French city of Lyon for a trip back to China a week ago. The South China Morning Post quoted a source as saying 64-year-old Meng was taken away for questioning in China. The Dutch government has defended a decision not to detain 4 Russians accused of an attempted cyber attack on the global chemical weapons watchdog in The Hague. The US and UK have joined the Netherlands in blaming Russian spies for a series of cyber plots worldwide. And the U.S. Senate has narrowly advanced U.S. President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to a final vote. Friday's vote, 51-49 in favor, was a test of support for the embattled nominee who has faced sexual assault allegations from several women. All eyes are on several swing senators for Saturday's final vote. Headlines, I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
The Premier League is back. Every team, every game, every goal is on Flow. Sign up for the Flow Sports Pack today and get 8 dedicated channels to all the Premier League games in stunning HD. Call 1-800-534-7253 or visit discoverflow.ky for more info. The Premier League is back.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you're invited to participate in the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens Brenda Tibbetts Lund Memorial 5K Walk Run on Saturday, October 6th from Cayman to the Flow Exchange and back, starting at 6 a.m. and the 5K and 10K Walk Run on Sunday, October the 14th at the 7 Mile Beach. Entry fee is $25 and participants can register online at www.caymanactive.com or the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens Peak Shop in the Elizabethan Square, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Funds raised go towards paying for mammogram screenings. There will be trophies for runners, and all participants are entered into the raffle following the event. Breast cancer survivors are also invited to attend the walk run. There will be special goodie bags for all survivors who attend.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for the 7 a.m. news, brought to you by Cayman National Bank, proudly serving the Cayman Islands since 1974. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
Hi, I'm remodeling our bathroom. I have a few questions.
Sure.
What are some ideas to make my bathroom feel larger? How do I know if I'm picking the right vanity? How do I choose a new toilet or a new countertop? Also, the lighting is terrible. Can I put a window or a skylight? And do I really need an exhaust fan?
You've come to the right place. At Brand Source, we custom design kitchen and baths, and our talented design team can help answer your questions. Whether you're looking for a modern, functional family bathroom or a luxurious personal retreat, we'll help create that beautiful space that makes your home yours. And if you're in a rush for a new look and have a limited budget, our ready-to-install bathroom vanities, built with solid wood and countertops of the finest materials, are a quick and easy remodeling solution.
For the very best in custom-designed kitchens and baths, visit Brand Source Home Gallery on Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, Cayman's new kitchen and bath center.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And in our studio in Royal March, Chris Colonel joins us as we talk about the proposed port project. Before we go through our calls, and for those who want to join us, 949-8837 or toll free. The last caller, Mr. Colonel, shared some sentiments.
No, I mean, I know Jan very well. She worked with us for a couple of years and enjoy her commentary now as much as I did back then. She always, you know what she's thinking, that's for sure. And I think that some of the concerns she's brought up are things that you want to make sure that Caymanians are making the benefit out of this. Obviously, whoever develops this dock is not doing it for free. There will have to be some kind of a berthing fee that is charged to pay back the investment that was made to build the port. It has always been set up that the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands is going to remain in full control, operational control of the port. You're not handing it out to be run by any other entity. They will make a return on what they invest. But as you know, I remember years ago being at the Marriott when the Honorable McKeeva Bush presented the original Deco design. And one thing that he did say was that, all of the revenues that come into the port currently will have to remain with government. Those are not things that are going towards paying for the port because they are already allocated to other departments. So with 2 million passengers coming in a year, and I think government's actual take is somewhere between $10 and $12 a person. You're talking north of 20 million that goes into funding, whether it be education, infrastructure, roads, any number of other departments. It's not spent on enhancing the cruise side, even though that's where that money is coming from. Even so, that revenue is still going to remain with government. That's not going to the person who builds the port. They're going to have to show that with charging with a berthing fee of some sort, whether a lot of people reference what is being paid to the tenders currently, whether it's that or something slightly different. That's where I would have to gather that those that invest into the port would be making the money back. We've heard that they're targeting 25 years as the payback on that investment. From recollection, and I'm using DECO again as what I remember, having been in that presentation, I think the time frame was 35 to 40 years, if not longer. So, we're looking at a much shorter time frame than previous proposals. We're looking at not having upland development where there won't be stores and so on the port to really benefit Georgetown and the people that operate in and out and around Georgetown. And then looking at the water sports, I think something that has to be asked. I know that you look at, I think the website is Dive 365 or something like that, talking about how you can dive in a different spot every day on Grand Cayman. Would Eden Rock and Cheeseburger Reef, would those have become as well known if there wasn't a port in Georgetown? If the port was somewhere else, would that be the Eden Rock, the Cheeseburger? I think that people forget that the stores and the government buildings, the courthouse, everything in town didn't develop and then decide, okay, let's ask for a port. Georgetown was originally where was determined to be the center for the cargo port in Grand Cayman, and everything developed around that. So the water sports developed around that. The stores developed around that. The main government buildings and financial center originally developed around that because that was the hub. Had another area been chosen, that you would have seen the development around that area. It wasn't the other way around. So I think that they're bringing the cruise lines in, making sure that we have that locked in to see sustained traffic and sustained growth is a way to ensure that those businesses will remain viable and will remain in operation, not in the other direction.
From the perspective then that there are some who have shared that once the port is built in town, if that happens, that some of the existing sites that are being used for diving and for water sports activities, they'll fall away. Any concerns that may happen? Or
I could only see them benefiting. We're going to get consistent quality traffic. I assume you're referring to things that are to the north and the south of the facility.
Yeah, or even, and then with the activity there. So would the water sports activity that currently exists within the waterfront near the port?
From what I can see, in the original concept design that was put out there, it's not like the 3 previous designs or 3 or 4 previous designs where you're paving completely across these areas. Those areas, for the most part, remain intact. There's no dredging that is going on across Eden Rock, and there's no dredging that is going on across and to the north of Cheeseburger Reef. The main concern is making sure that they do it the right way, they do it responsibly, they take their time. There are different dredge technologies out there, and I think that Baird does identify that there is a fast way to do the dredging, but it's not the most sensitive way to do it. I think that in talking with some of those dredge companies, they could be in and out of the dredge process in 2 to 3 weeks with a cutter suction dredge. But if you take your time with more of the kind of, the backhoe, the hydraulic dredging,
clamshell,
that you can take your time and not just set a big drill down onto the bottom of the ocean floor and let it go. You try to make sure that you are more sensitive in the process that you take. And I think that these are things that you have to. It's making sure that it's done the right way, and none of us want to see any destruction of our environment of anything. Some of the big things that get thrown out there are the plume of death or the turbidity and so on. And one of the things that Baird came back on after being questioned was they were showing bow thrusters in operations at the port running for 100% of power for 15 minutes. They were questioned on that, and when they went back to the Star Center in Florida to see what is reasonable, I think that the maximum amount of time in 15 to 20 knot winds was maybe 1 minute between 60 and 80%. So you're talking about 15 times less than what the original model was showing. You're not going to see that siltation spread, what that 15 minutes would 15 times what is real is going to happen. Something else that gets missed, and I spent a lot of time on these documents and on the projections on the models. Something that people don't understand is that when you see what was that kind of big red area that gets thrown out there, that is showing you 3 spots in the harbor being dredged for a 90-day period and then held as a cumulative graph. So to make that sound a little simpler, if you were studying traffic flow in Georgetown and you wanted to see how much dust cars kick up, if you had a camera catching every piece of dust, mud, and water that's kicked up, splashed up over 90 days and held it in place, if you took that and said, what should we do with traffic in Georgetown or any other area, you would probably say, well, we shouldn't have cars. Because if you froze that dust, froze that water, froze that mud, anywhere that it was kicked up and left it to show over a 90-day period, you would say, well, there's a wall of mud through the whole of town. And that's not the case. I mean, the daily implications of what they're doing and monitoring to make sure that it doesn't spread is what you have to really take into account. You have to do it the right way, and you have to know that you're not looking at 90 days worth of cumulative information all piled into one graphic.
All right. Gents, I think we have a caller online. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dwayne, and good afternoon.
Afternoon, my friend. How are you?
Fine, Dwayne. Very fine. You see, Dwayne, I and the general public, I'm speaking to the Caymanian people, the general public here. First, if you look at this issue of the port, you find so much suspicion issues. Number one, that the person who's sitting in the board of Port Authority is Kertonot. The minister is Kertonot. The person who come into the radio to defend this on behalf of the government is Kertonot.
Just to make sure we clarify, 1, I'm not here on behalf of the government. 2, my father, who was on the port board, resigned several years ago. And also when he was on the port board, and you can check the minutes to make sure, anytime that the cruise facility was brought up, he recused himself of being anywhere near any of the discussion, the information. And you can ask another radio show host if that is true or not, because he's very vocal right now about the port, and I don't think that he would ever accuse my father of having done anything in any wrong kind of a way towards the cruise or towards the port. I think that making accusations like that again is just trying to throw mud on something that's not true.
Yeah, and the other issue is, the other issue here is, the whole issue about both sides of the argument. I'm not saying the other side of the argument, right? Both sides, in my opinion, are two rich people, two rich families fighting over who making the money from the cruise business. It is not about the Caymanian people. It is not about what is good for the Caymanian people. It is about what is good for you, Mr. Kertonol, or what is good for that man who do the tendering. It is not about what is good for Cayman. So my suggestion today that this country form an independent entity, an independent group of people who is independent, who is not connected to no Kertonals, no tendering people, and this entity looks really formed from men who is experienced in this country, who is well-known, honest, reliable people who do this issue of solving the issue of this argument about building cruise ship in Georgetown or build it in Red Sea.
All right. Hey, thanks much for sharing. And I guess an opinion. Mr. March?
Well, first of all, I'll give you an independent reinforcement that I've always known the Kirkconnells to be of the highest ethical standard that I've ever encountered. And with regards to is this about two rich families fighting each other, that couldn't be further from the truth. So many hundreds, thousands of us currently depend on it. and there's going to be thousands more going forward. There's a whole lot more of us little guys than there are of larger entities, which I think people are really trying to be disingenuous and cloud the issue here and distract from what is really needed. We need to go about this in an objective, scientific manner. Yes, I respect the knowledge of the seaman, as a caller reference to. My grandfather was a seaman. My uncle was a seaman, and it's a great heritage that we have. But when you have to deal with things such as this, you have to have science and objectivity. And there's no other way to do it. There's no other way to do it. You have to have the truth.
I mean, it's not. I'm not here trying to pretend that we don't have a business in Georgetown. I've never tried to say that I'm part of some spokes group for nothing to do. I think it's pretty obvious that we do benefit, but we're a very small part of what that is. If there are 3,400 people, as the report says, already working in cruise, and we employ 250, we're a very small percentage of the number of people that benefit from cruise tourism. There will always be people that like to throw things out there and like to try to bring you down. I've seen and heard a lot of it over the last 3 years. It is what it is. It's unfortunate that people like to take it that way. I think that one of the great things about Cayman is that it affords people like the caller to be able to find a better place to live than where he used to be, where he's accepted to become a part of the community, even though he tries to attack people that have been here for 7 generations or more. We're a very peaceful people, very, very kind, Cayman kind, loving people. I don't take it personally. I know that a lot of this is political, and I know that some people are geared up to make commentary like that or coaxed to make commentary like that, and it's a part of it. It's unfortunate. I think that anybody that knows me, knows the family, knows that that's not the way that this is, and I hope that people can see past some of the pettiness that gets involved.
As we have this discussion, we've seen now is it Jean-Michel Cousteau weighing in. Presumably he's authored a letter sent to the tourism minister saying, "Hey guy, hang on, let's not go forward." Now Cousteau, probably almost as famous as Bob Soto.
Probably more so. I mean, there's no taking away from what the Cousteau family has meant to the dive industry. They've been pioneers in that industry for decades. There's no taking away from everything they have accomplished and the knowledge that they have. He is the CEO and chairman of the Ocean Futures Group, and I think that obviously everybody's opinion is valuable. I think that if you are the head of a conservation group or an environmental group, your sole purpose is to object to any kind of a project that has anything to do with the natural environment, especially being in the ocean where his family has been for decades and has done so much work. I think we all want to fight for conservation. This is not about trying to take away the natural environment. I'm not surprised that he sent the letter. I'm more shocked that he didn't send it 3 years ago. I expect almost all of the environmental groups to weigh in one way or the other. That's what they're there for. The thing that we have to think about again is that it's a commercial port that has been operating for decades. Most of the area out in front of that port has been compromised to the point where we've seen videos of what was coral turned to rubble, which is heartbreaking when you see that.
But is that more of irresponsible, improper anchoring in those instances? The commercial port of 1930 versus the commercial port of 2018.
Well, the cruise ships are still anchoring in a lot of that area. So the area out in front of the port, I don't know that there's any coming back from what has been done there over the decades. And it is too bad that we didn't know 30, 40 years ago that we could have put some permanent moorings in place or something to help in that process to make sure that we weren't constantly...
Well, we did, though, because didn't we spend, remember the controversy some years ago in the early 90s, the $1 million, per pair mooring and never went anywhere? I mean, there were some political commentary as well.
There is. Again, it is one of those things. Had we known that that maybe either berthing or something else could have been put in place, we could have avoided some of that. The real discussion is what can we do to make sure that the surrounding reefs are either not affected or affected to the least amount possible. And I think everybody, like I said, everybody is for that. When it comes to today's world, I get up in the morning and I get the kids ready for school. I make them breakfast. I get their lunches together. We pack litterless lunches. We're trying to avoid single-use plastics. We don't buy plastic straws anymore. We teach the kids to recycle. This is the way that everybody is today, and that's what we want to be. We're not out here trying to say forget about the environment or we don't care how it's done. It's for our kids in the end. We are taking care of Cayman for the next generation and the next generation. Even the difference between my grandfather and myself in thinking about how you treat waste or things. There is a learning process, and there is an evolution to the way we do things, and all of us want to make sure that we leave the least amount of impact that we possibly can. At the same time, we have to not be blind to the fact that we are an island, and things have to be brought into the island. We need a port for cargo, for cruise. It's not something that's going to change. You can't bring everything in by air, that's for sure. You're not going to be flying in cars. You're not going to be flying in the heavy, larger goods. So a port is going to be a part of our future and an expanded part of our future going forward. So at some point you have to say, okay, the harbor has already been compromised to a large degree in the marine environment. We do need to make it a better process, and we need to make sure that we protect everything in the surrounding environment the best that we possibly can.
Yeah. As you speak to Noel March and Chris Kirkconnell, gents, as we look at the port project, what do you say to those people who say, well, even with the enhanced cargo, with the expanded cruise port in Georgetown Harbour, there will still be times of the year when neither cargo nor cruise passenger can come ashore because of inclement weather. Something else somewhere else might have been better.
Well, I can tell you that there'll be a lot of times when you can operate the berthing facility where you could not operate tenders. So it's not like any little bit of weather is going to shut down the facility.
I think
tendering is a lot more sensitive.
Something else that you have to decide is what are the criteria for the ideal port. If your only criteria is a safe harbor, and you're going to say forget about how much dredging, how much environmental damage, how much. If you want just a safe harbor, there are other ways to build just a safe harbor. If you don't care about the other attributes, I'm sure that you could dredge all the way into North Sound and make a big basin there for yachts to come in, for ships to come in. You wouldn't have to worry about weather ever, unless it's a hurricane. But you're going to dredge, millions more cubic yards. And the Baird report actually shows you that even just trying to get into Barker's, they estimated the dredge volume to be over 6 million cubic yards, whereas the original Georgetown design was 300,000. There's a huge difference between 300,000 and 6 million. So just in dredging alone, if you think about what has been kicked up about the environmental concerns to dredge, going into the North Sound would mean dredging that nobody can even fathom compared to what the relatively small amount that we're talking about in Georgetown. And the same goes for Red Bay. Both areas you'd have to cut through a reef several hundred yards wide to get these ships in. You'd be dredging from start to finish all the way through, as opposed to just a very small area. And something that I think does get lost is that Georgetown is already a deep water port. So the dredging, from what we can see, would start in, I think that the most you would have to dredge down is maybe about 6 or 7 feet from what the original plans were showing. You're not dredging a full 30, 40, 50 feet like you would have to dredge into the North Sound or into Red Bay. You're not having to cut through a reef. You're not having to cut outside the reef to be able to get through with these kind of ships. I think that if you ask the Department of Environment, if you asked any experts that are involved, the least amount of damage dredging that has to be done would be in Georgetown compared to anywhere else. And it says so in the responses to Baird's report.
All right. Just let's pause quickly and take a break. For those who are listening, if you want to join this discussion, 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. When we come back, Noel March, Chris Kirkconnell will stay with us for a bit more, and we can talk to you about the port project. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go.
Meet the world with Puritan Cleaners. They are here for you and me. Best cleaners you will see. Happy 60th anniversary to Puritan. Puritan, now using the most popular and eco-friendly cleaning solvents. Take advantage of our ongoing discounts on all men and women's apparel. Ask about other discounts. 4 convenient locations to serve you. Savannah Countryside, Elgin Avenue, Georgetown, Centennial Towers, West Bay, Eastern Avenue, Georgetown. Drive through, rain or shine. Free pickup and delivery. Call Puritan Cleaners 949-7104. You feel good when you look good.
The 2018 Fall Labor Force Survey is currently being conducted by the Economics and Statistics Office ESO. The LFS collects data on the employed and unemployed persons. Trained interviewers with ESO ID cards will visit the randomly selected households in all districts. The interviews are confidential in accordance with the statistics law. No individual data will be published or disclosed. Survey data are exempt from freedom of information. For more details, please call the ESO hotline at 516-3329.
Did you hear that Vant Motors has your sale going on now? And you get your choice on the money you'll save on your new car or truck?
My sale? My choice? Really?
Yeah! And they have lots of cars on sale. Some up to $7,000 off.
Sounds pretty good.
It gets even better. You can choose to take the full discount, or you can get some or all of it as cash back.
Extra cash back would be great.
Exactly! And you can even use the savings to extend your warranty or service plan so you'll drive worry-free for years longer.
Another good idea.
If you want to upgrade with something like a new roof rack or backup camera, you can choose that too.
Wow, I get to choose?
Yeah, that's why it's your sale, your choice. Going on now at Vant Motors on Walkers Road, while stocks last.
The NCVO needs your help. Tune in to the annual radio telethon on Saturday, October 20th at 7 p.m. for the best in local entertainment, including C&B, Trinity, Little Magic, Roy Barton, and High Tide. Call in to pledge any amount or donate online at CaymanGiftCertificates.com to be entered to win over $5,000 worth of prizes. The NCVO's annual radio telethon is broadcasted live from Prospect Playhouse on Radio Cayman and Cayman 27. The NCVO is one of Cayman's oldest charities dedicated to the care, education, and well-being of children and families in need of support. Tune in to Radio Cayman and please help us help our children. The annual Radio Telethon, Saturday, October 20th, 7 p.m. to midnight, live from Prospect Playhouse.
Sports fans, tune in to Radio Cayman Sports Extra Show.
Hi, I'm Bruce Lee Colson.
Sports Extra.
This and every Tuesday night, right here on Radio Cayman, 89.9 and 93.9, Cayman Brack and Little Cayman.
Sports from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. Sports Extra.
Proudly brought to you by King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. As we continue discussing the proposed port project, Noel March and Chris Kirkconnell are our guests. Gents, we do have some callers. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm listening with great interest. I just wanted to share that I had an opportunity to attend the Savannah meeting last evening. I found it very informative. I'm not anti-port development. I'm not pro-port development. What I found most beneficial, and first let me suggest that anyone who has an opportunity to attend one of these meetings does. What I found most beneficial from the meeting was not the speakers specifically, but some of the older gentlemen in attendance that had spent years at sea, that had operated dredging equipment, that highlighted that this isn't you do this and then whatever damage is there can be mitigated. Obviously, it's very difficult, if at all possible, to truly mitigate the damage of the silt to the surrounding areas. But they pointed out that the pit, as they referred to, that will initially be dredged, will have to be re-dredged continuously. They talked about the bow thrusters and the propulsion mechanisms of these boats stirring up the bottom on a continuous basis. They also talked about the design that's being considered, one gentleman stating that no captain in his right mind would moor beside another boat, dock beside another boat with a side wind. I wonder what your opinion is on people requesting a referendum and having input into an irreversible decision that is being made by a handful of people. I'll hang up now and just like to hear your contribution, and I would encourage anybody that has an opportunity to learn more about both sides of this subject, do so. And these meetings that are taking place, I found it extremely beneficial. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir. Ms. March?
I believe that a lot of the gentleman's concerns, or the ones that he heard raised at the meeting, would be addressed by things that came up in the meeting on the 26th. I believe that there are recordings of that available for anybody to be able to review it again, because I know that several of those concerns were addressed by the panel that was there.
I know that as far as especially the operation of the port, one thing I think people have there are a lot of misconceptions as to what's out there, and you have to look very closely at what's being proposed to get a better idea. When you look at the depth of the water, especially after the piers are being proposed to be pushed out to deeper water, it's not a dredge pit per se, and in a lot of other areas, a lot of other islands, they have dredged much closer to shore. And that's when you see that, having to dredge down 20 or 30 feet. A lot of the piers where they will be starting, where the boats would initially, the closest that they would get is in anywhere from 25 to 30 feet of water, and from just using the original concept design. And it's less than 8 feet that are necessarily having to be dredged at the shallowest point, and down to about half of that dredge area only taking out maybe 3 to 4 feet. So the boats being a deep harbor, you're not operating in where you have to create a channel coming in like you do in some of the other islands. Something else that was brought up as options for during the operation of the port, from my understanding, there would have to be what they call maintenance dredging, but it's not what you're seeing as far as the actual creation of the pier. It's more to remove any fines that settle back into the port. But there are stabilization devices. So you have this concrete matting that a lot of that was talked about putting down, especially where the bow thrusters would be in operation, to make sure that it holds the bottom intact and prevents further degradation of that area, to kind of keep everything stable. There are things out there for mitigating that are in place. I mean, again, I don't know that he said there's no perfect solution where you can make sure that there is no touching and no effect. I mean, I think that anyone that says that you're putting a harbor in place, even as it is now, there's disturbance of the bottom, whether you build a new port or not. Any large vessels operating in and out of the harbor, there is a disturbance. But there is technology out there to make sure that you do the least amount of an effect on the environment as possible.
I also believe that one of the things that they're designing into it is that the ships will come in bow first, whenever possible, to keep the prop wash as far away, because since the bottom falls away and gets deeper as you go away from shore, it would keep the large propellers in the deeper water. Which right now, as Mr. Kirkconnell said, sometimes those propellers are in shallower water and we're still getting disturbance.
Yes, we do have another caller. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yeah, I'd like to just ask a couple of questions and pick up on something that
yes, sir.
That the previous caller just mentioned. And it seems to me that both of these guests you have on there have at least looked at all the proposals pretty thoroughly. and are familiar with them. But I wonder, was there any thought given in any of the surveys or whatever that was done to talk with some of the Caymanians who have vast dredging experiences? And there are quite a number of them still on the island here, and they're scattered all over the east coast of the U.S. that have participated in massive dredging projects. And I think that you may be surprised at what they would tell you about dredging. And according to some of the figures that I heard thrown out there, it seems to me that you're going to be dredging out there 7 to 10 acres, maybe more than that. It'll probably wind up 15 acres. So some other thing. You ever heard of Marco Island?
Yes, sir.
Your guess?
No, well, yeah.
In Florida?
In Florida, on the West Coast, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah. Marco Island.
Okay, a massive dredging project. There was quite a number of Caymanians involved in that. All up and down the coast of Miami Beach. When that was being developed, massive dredging operation, Caymanians was deep in that. And some of them left some tales all around of what they saw there at that time. Governor's Harbor. You all go in Governor's Harbor?
Yes, sir.
Some really serious dredging went on in there. What does the water look like? 50 years ago, it was clear as a crystal. And I guess Governor's Harbor was dredged 20 years ago. Well, more than that, probably 35 years ago. That hasn't cleared up yet. White hole. You ever heard of a white hole?
Well, after coming from the barber. Yes, sir.
No, you guess.
White holes?
White holes, yeah.
Yes, sir. Acknowledging yes.
Yeah, all right. Well, that was where our forefathers did all their anchoring. They wouldn't anchor anywhere else but in a white hole. And what a white hole is a big patch of sandy bottom where they would not disturb the coral. But I think there has to be a lot of consideration given to this, to every aspect of what is being proposed. And I think there's Caymanian expertise around that could shed some very important and beneficial advice and light on this whole project, and make sure that what will happen will not degrade what the visitors come here to see.
Yes, sir.
I think that there are obviously some very valid points. I think that you want to make sure that as much local knowledge is employed into this as possible. You want as many experts, whether local or experts in the field, to be involved to make sure that we get this right. I understand what he's talking about anchoring the white hole. between either whether in Cayman Brac or here growing up fishing with my grandfather, who was a sea captain as well for many years. I had a lot of knowledge taught to me while operating even the smaller boats. I think that it's probably quite a bit harder to find a place to drop an anchor into a white hole with the size of the ships that we're talking about today versus some of the ships that would have been in the past 50, 60, 70 years ago. I think that today's technology and the size of the vessels that we're dealing with have gotten us to where we're having this conversation. Back with smaller vessels, it might not have been as much of a concern to have somewhere to berth the ship. And that's why we are where we are now, is that everything has evolved, everything has grown, everything has come into a much different scale, and making sure that we have those experts that have seen much larger dredging projects in comparison to what we're talking about today. You need that information. You need that perspective to make sure that we get it right here.
I would encourage anyone who has experience to contact the government, if they are concerned enough, to contact them and see whatever is that they have that they can contribute.
Anything else, sir, you want to share?
Yeah, well, some of those guys with the vast experience may not even be in this whole discussion circle, and I wonder if any effort has been made to get this input.
Sir, I definitely do not know, but I think that it would behoove anybody to make sure that we are in touch with as many people with as much information as we can.
All right.
One last point that I forgot to touch on with the last caller was talking about operating in and out of the port. Again, from answers from Baird in the responses to questions, they use the Star Center, which is the most state-of-the-art simulation that you can use to determine maneuvers in and out of the port. That was something that was used in the design and the angles of the piers, considering different wind directions, multiple different wind speeds, bringing in actual captains to dock the ships. And I know that some of the notes said that using the simulation, even with that, where in real life you can be much more precise because the simulation does not give the same sensory kind of feedback. You can't visually see the same way that you can in everyday, and if you're actually there on the ship. That they were comfortable with operating in and out of the port as designed, even in a simulation, but that it would be much easier to maneuver in actual real life when you have the full sensory input.
Okay, sir?
Well, yeah, now, one further question.
Yes, sir.
Do you think all of this investigation that was done with the Star, whatever you call it, do they have a Sundog apps that they plug in there?
A what, sorry?
Sundog.
I'm not sure.
Could you?
Okay, well,
I can only go by the responses that were given by the experts.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Okay, sir. Thanks very much. Jess, we have another caller as we speak to Noel March. And, that caller was, what is it? And we'll come again. You want to take a quick little break, catch your breath, and then we come back, or you want to continue on, Mr. Colonel? All right. Good stuff. All right. All right, Mr. Lynn, he's the man in charge. Let's keep chatting. A couple of questions then from the callers and the perspective, and from sort of looking at the analysis. Going back to the initial discussions where we were talking about, locations. I know you alluded to it earlier, and perhaps just to rehash it quickly. Someone shared, well, how can we make a proper assessment of, when there wasn't, from a business perspective, no sort of cost-benefit analysis done of all potential sites, all put into one play, and then the public given a chance to have a meaningful understanding of viable locations. The government said, we're going with the Georgetown Harbour, one location, one site, one option, all in. I know Mr. McConnell is, but Mr. March?
Well, just to echo again what Mr. McConnell said, is that even the DOE at one point had expressed that if it was going to be done, that the Georgetown location would be the least damaging to the environment.
Environmentally.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just the sheer amount of volume of dredging alone, to me, is completely prohibitive. I would be out there against it if they were, for environmental reasons, if they were wanting to put it in a different location, because we have some very pristine areas that are very important to our tourism product that we can't afford to go anywhere near with a dredge. So that is why, I think all consensus is that the least, by far, least damaging location is the Georgetown Harbor.
I mean, with that being really the there are a lot of concerns, whether it be cost or the infrastructure in town, the infrastructure built around the island. The environment seems to be the largest concern for all of us. Even those that are pushing for the port, we want to make sure that the environment is a huge part of the decisions and the planning and anything that happens. And considering the multiple times more environmental impact, putting it anywhere else, that whether it just be from more work being done, or from the fact that you're touching a space that has never had anchors dropped on it in that degree, does not have a commercial harbor with ships running in and out of it on a daily basis. I think that you would find very little support to move forward in many other places.
For those who are listening, certainly share your thoughts if you want. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Or if you want, you can WhatsApp 925-3261. And gents, as we're looking at a couple of the sentiments that are expressed here, one writes in that, the perspective of the cruise passengers have easier access from ship to shore. They will surely go back and eat on the ship for free rather than spending money on the shore. So it would be more advisable to spend the money on stay-over tourism, expand the airport, the runway and the like. The spend per cruise passenger relative to the stay-over. And then says the dock there isn't necessary now. Before we take the caller, any thoughts?
I think we've already shown what our priorities are. We're already building the airport to making sure that stay-over tourism is the number one. We do know that the average spend is much higher for a passenger coming in by stay-over. They have come from anywhere from 5 to 7 days. They have a lot more time to spend on island. Again, it's not a matter of choosing between. They both feed each other. I think that I remember seeing a presentation from Cayman Islands Tourism Association and from DOT showing that approximately 5% of cruisers come back as stay-over. And if you look at 2 million people and 5% of that, a huge part of what you see in stay-over traffic comes because people were able to experience Cayman first on a cruise. So it's not a matter of trying to say, which is better. You need to have both, and
they complement one another.
Right. All right, Jess, let's go to our phones and join this caller. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah, Mr. Cocano, can you tell me if you have any idea how many of these mega ships will come at a time? And can you answer that question and I'll give another one?
Well, if I was to look at what is currently in the area, I know that the Oasis sails across, it's either every other week. The Harmony sails across every other week. I think that coming this fall, also the Allure, I think that the Symphony is coming into the Caribbean, but I don't know that they're on a Western run yet. Just looking at Royal Caribbean alone, you would probably have, my guess would be one of the megaships in at any given time, possibly two. But it's not just about what is going across today. It's looking at the fact that we've heard from the cruise lines that all of the lines are moving towards these larger ships. They have much better economies of scale. They are able to provide a much larger entertainment package to allure passengers in, customers in. This is where the industry is heading. They will never get rid of the smaller ships. It's not going to only be megaships. But I do think that we had evidence from the meeting the other day that they all have these larger ships on order. And most of the studies in the report showed around 2 megaships in, possibly at the same time, with 2 other kind of 3,000 to 4,000 passenger ships in along with them. It's as far as going forward into the future, it depends how many of the megaships are brought in and how many are scheduled at the same time.
So you think we could probably have one a week or 2 a week, roughly?
No, I was talking about. I was talking about maybe 1 per day.
1 per day, and then if you got 1 per day and we got 2 pairs, then the smaller ship will dock up alongside that pair for a day while they're here.
Yes.
Yeah. So then, if say for example we got 2 megaships or 3 megaships in one particular day, which I don't think so, and then you got to end up tendering the other small boat. Would they feel a bit uncomfortable to know that they're not really feel that extra pressure to go to pull up alongside the pair to get off instead of being tendered? And I understand when I was at the meeting, I Mr. Moses said that, liar. I heard down the line, knowing sometimes that they're trying to attract high-end visitors to the island. Well, Dodge said that too when he was building his new seafire. And I just want to say that I thought that all visitors that come to the Cayman are all high-end visitors. Some may spend $100 today. Some may spend $1 tomorrow. But every dollar adds up. And we got ships coming here practically 7 days a week when the season is on. Do you think that for us to go and look into this pier and try to go and build a pier to accommodate these large cruise ships, so you don't think it's really unfair not to do a lot more better with the airport, especially when it comes to putting jet rays at the airport? Because, sweetheart, I have seen so many projects that our government start and never gets to finish them, and now the airport gone over $55 million, and they're saying there will not be any stores built on this stop, hopefully. But things keep down the line as our government keep building things. They just keep changing and adding, and then they come back and say, well, we look at the economy, and the economy is rising rapidly, so we decided we're going to put a store or two up there. You understand where I'm coming from? And that's not beneficial to you to a certain extent, you know what I mean? But I just want to say that, I feel like we could do a whole lot better with the airport than we're doing, and going out to get ourselves in this debt with this pier. I'm not saying we may not need a pier, but one of my biggest concerns is just in Cocorno. My whole family lives on Walker's Road, and South Church Street is just the back street of Walker's Road. You know that, right? Right?
Yes.
And I'm just really concerned if anything was to happen with water-wise and that water across. My family on Walker's Road. Well, I live in Newland.
Okay, so Ms. Jan, you hit on a couple of things, but if I can, with the last thing that you mentioned, if I could just quickly touch on that. I think I've spent a lot of time on these documents, and some of the details I don't think always get brought up in conversation. And one of the things that I did pick up on is that the part of the harbor that would be filled back in, they show that there would be a storm and surge wall to protect against any adverse weather. And just to even without that, just to give you a little bit to think about. Miss Jan, do you remember when the chocolate box was in Georgetown?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember during Northwesters how the waves used to wash across the road there before the Royal Watler Terminal was built?
Yes, and I also remember the water coming up to Kentucky Fried Chicken when I was working in your store on Shaden Road, and up to the Guinness Tree.
Yeah, and ever since building the Royal Watler Pier, I haven't seen a single wave come across that road yet, correct?
I can't say yes. I would not say yes.
Well, I've, if anything, what is being built would be more of a shelter rather than encouraging. Even just looking at the impact of the Royal Watler Terminal, where waves during Northwesters used to wash across that kind of Fort George area up towards the road by, and you'd have rocks and debris washed up across the road there. We don't see that happening anymore after Royal Watler was built, and I think you'd probably see more again of a protection from this dock than you would see a hurt to it.
I'm glad to say Royal Watler here. Do you know that when you have a little bit of surge in town, the Royal Pier cannot use the tender? They got to go to the North Terminal or come over to the South Terminal. I mean, I'm not trying to pick your brains or what the case may be, but do you have an answer to that, to know why the Royal Pier can't work, but the North can work and the South can work when they have a little small surge up there in Georgetown with the tender?
Well, I think that's part of why the original dock was built off of that kind of North Terminal area, is that you have a sheltered angle there from the wind and the waves. I think that if we had looked at probably, I think that the cargo operations having been already in place at the North Terminal are part of what influenced building Royal Watler where it is, to keep cargo in that location. And I think that if we had looked at kind of extending that for the tenders instead, you probably would have seen that you don't have to see any switching around. The tenders would always be able to come in there with the small surge. Obviously, with Northwesters, it's a bit different, but I think that the reason why Hogstye Bay was picked in that kind of a format was because of being able to protect the ships in that way.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of more questions, but I thank you so much, Mr. Caporno. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jan. Always good talking to you.
Thanks much. We do have some other callers, but respectfully, we have a news break. 949-8037 or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. We'll pause and go to our news. When we come back, we'll join our callers, so please stay tuned.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Police responded to an incident at a store on Birch Tree Hill Road in West Bay. Shortly after 12:30 p.m. yesterday, it was reported that a man had entered the store, after which an argument developed between him and the store's owner. During the course of the argument, a dog belonging to the owner allegedly attacked the man, who injured the dog with a knife. The dog was transported to a veterinary clinic in Georgetown for treatment. The matter, however, is currently under police investigation. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, a man who pushed a former Eurotunnel boss onto tube tracks in central London has been found guilty of attempted murder. Sir Robert Malpas went flying from the platform at Marble Arch Station when he was shoved by Paul Crossley. The 91-year-old industrialist was rescued by a bystander, but suffered a fractured pelvis and a head wound. 46-year-old Crossley was found guilty of 2 counts of attempted murder. A British man has died after being bitten by a sea snake on a fishing trawler in Australia. The 23-year-old man, thought to be a backpacker, had just pulled up a net off the coast of the Northern Territory when he was bitten. Emergency crews were called to the boat but were unable to save the man. And the last place you want to find a missing envelope full of money is your shredder. But that's where Ben and Jackie Belknap of Salt Lake City, Utah, discovered their $1,060, which they needed to pay for University of Utah American football season tickets. Searching for the missing money, they were horrified to find it torn to pieces, courtesy of their son Leo. Their 2-year-old son helps shred junk mail and was trying to help. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman. Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Water Authority Cayman's Survival Tip Saturday series is back. Throughout the 2018 hurricane season, the Water Authority will be posting helpful preparedness tips on our social media accounts every Saturday. Follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook to stay informed on how you can prevent damage and minimize danger in the event of a storm. Be prepared, be aware, be safe. This hurricane preparedness tip is brought to you by Water Authority Cayman, suppliers of the world's most popular drink.
The Department of Children and Family Services would like to invite the community to a series of inspiring events recognizing the contributions of our senior citizens throughout October, the Older Persons Month. This year's theme is Respecting the Wisdom and Value of Older Persons. Key events include educational seminars, a beach walk, a variety show, gala, movie trip, and more across all 3 islands. For a full listing of events, get your copy of the Older Persons Month calendar at public buildings, dcfs@gov.ky, or contact DCFS at 949-0290.
But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. And really grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation, especially with our guests, Mr. Chris Kirkconnell and Mr. Noel March. 949-837 or 1-800-534-8255. A couple of questions on our WhatsApp that we want to pose. I think perhaps a caller or two. Let's go through the lines. Good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, man.
Yeah, I'm Sterling. So, who are you? Let me go this.
Okay, we got Chris Kirkconnell and we have Noel March.
Yeah, we're at school, Chris. He's 4 years older than me. 3-4 years older than me. I know him.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's delicious. But listen, the point I make, Sterling.
Uh-huh.
You see I call in the last 2 weeks straight. I for the port now.
Right.
And again, losing, but I tell you, one day, I end up in the industry. Right? And listen to me. I hear Mr. Mose Colonel. He say, I want PWC. Right?
Mm-hmm.
When they dredge it deeper in the harbor, it less effect. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
So, they partly by saying no one can predict if it's lucrative with the funds or currency monies. I don't know, I don't care. Why for the port now? Because, listen to me, nobody persuade me in what I do. Like it's something.
Mm-hmm.
Enough information, right? And when I come out there about it, I for the port. Like I say 3 times this afternoon, I for it. You know, I talked to a politician, a former politician, related to me. And the same thing, I keep echoing. The fella say to me, do it now, get it cheaper. Take advantage of it. You don't hear about no remorse or sorrow. We're hurting. Or trying to communist or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Take advantage of it. I have a report. And I just tune in now.
All right.
So I probably in depth what's going on. Life for it. And listen to me. And again, nobody feel on me. But when I call and talk show, in a day or night, I say what I say.
All right.
Report. I for it. You know, and like I said again, the PWC, right? They say the deeper and less effect. You know, stop playing around with it. When Martin Law and them, before in the 80s, I'm on 84, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now my see if you win, they say, oh, this and that. This will happen. See if you win. Britannia.
Right.
You feel me? We got to stop playing around with it. I tell you, Sterling, I work with Carlton.
Mm-hmm.
So against Silver Mangroves, right? Down straight to the sound now. I got 3 feet down there. 8 years, left, right, and center. They were against it, but and I benefit from it now.
Mm-hmm.
But they have banquet all day with railroads, and that's compulsory.
All right. I appreciate it, man. Anything else?
So I tune in late, mm-hmm. But that's my part. After the port, and listen to me. I don't care who signed it now, but I know nothing good for me.
Okay.
But if it's going to referendum, that's not a sign.
Right.
You tell you.
Right.
That's cool.
Thanks, man. Thanks very much.
I think the caller has an excellent point about doing it while we can afford to do it and afford to negotiate the best deal with regards to the financing of the port facility, because we don't want to get to the point where things are so bad and that we're desperate. You want to negotiate from a position of strength, not a position of weakness.
I mean, I think, like I said in the beginning, I think that what the government has been able to put together as a wish list, which has become kind of the backbone of how this has been put together, to dream that would be able to get pretty much the best that you possibly can in every direction. I think the only thing that if there was a way to not possibly touch any of the environment would be the only other thing you would add on to that wish list, but there does have to be a balance between solidifying our future and trying to, but also at the same time making sure it is the least possible environmental damage. Altogether, I mean, especially looking at all of the other docks that have been proposed, that were in favor of the developer. This dock is in the favor of the island, in the favor of the Caymanian people, and getting the most that we possibly can, giving the least that we possibly can. Right. So I do agree with him. I think that passing on what they have put together would, we don't know what the next iteration would be. We have seen what the previous iterations were, and those were not in the favor of the local person, the local business. They were in the favor of the developer.
All right, gents, there's a question on the WhatsApp that's asking, what are your thoughts on people having a say via the referendum being proposed? I know the caller earlier had also asked a similar question. Any thoughts on that, gents?
I mean, the way I look at it is that I put my confidence in government at the polls. And, it's something that these individuals who I supported, something that I knew that they supported, and something that they had on their manifesto and what they were going to pursue if they were elected. So as far as I'm concerned, I've put it in their hands. And so far, they seem to be following the proper procurement process, which to me is of great importance. And as long as they're doing that, and people like the FCO are happy with the way they're handling it, let them continue.
I mean, my opinion there would be, obviously, what the people of Cayman want is what should be done. I do think that, if not all, the majority of everybody that was elected, and I'm not talking in the kind of the government that's sitting on one side of the bench versus the other. Pretty much everyone in government currently, maybe spare a few, have been elected on tickets saying that a dock would be built, that berthing would be a part of their manifesto, which party they were on, one side or the other. So trying to say that the current government, the unity government that is in control of government, was not elected that way. Pretty much everybody in government was elected saying that they were for cruise berthing and that it was part of what they would be pushing to do. The current petition in the referendum, and this is just my opinion, I do think that there are people involved that are genuinely telling you, okay, we feel that we want to say. I do think that there are people out there that do feel that way. I do think that some of the louder voices that are involved with steering this do have other motives, whether it be aspiring politicians that are trying to use a project that has some contention in the public, which you see this. It's kind of a textbook political situation where you see some people for, some people against. Some political hopefuls are wanting to jump out there to try to make a name for themselves, to try to make some noise and try to take advantage of a situation rather than having a genuine push. And then you do have some people that are involved in pushing for it that really just want to see that a port doesn't happen. Whether it be some of the opposition members that are also using it as an opportunity to attack the current sitting government. It's something that I think you if you sit back and listen to any of the shows, which I think a lot of us are paying attention to most of the shows that we hear now. What I see as a common thread is that you hear, you'll have people in, whether it be a radio or a television segment, they will give you 1,001 reasons why you should not build the port, and then at the end say, oh, and by the way, we want to have this referendum because it's whether you want it or not, it's so that you have a say. I think that if the real goal was to have a referendum to find people's opinion, the push would be, here's why we think having an opinion matters, not here's 10,000 reasons why I feel you should not do it. Oh, and by the way, please sign the petition and let's have a referendum. I think that the cards are shown straight away. They say, don't do it because of this, don't do it because of that. We don't like it because of that. Oh, and here, by the way, please come sign the petition for the referendum. All right, gents, we do have a caller online, Noel March and Chris Kirkconnell are our guests. Hey, good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon to you, Sterling, and good afternoon to
good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Kirkconnell and Mr. March.
Good afternoon.
You said a mouthful a while ago. Repeat it. And you also said something very important, that when people ran for elections, in actual fact, there is no government at any time in any country, I believe, that has ever completely adhered to their manifesto, because it might take 3 terms to do that, because there's always an opposition, which is rightful and which is called for in the Constitution, and there's always agreements and disagreement, and politics is perennial. And the issue of an election is never really completely forgotten in a small country like ours. And so when you elect people, you elect them to make choices for you, to have you, to be a voice for you. That's why we have elections, or there's no point in having them if you don't trust those people to make the right decisions in crucial times. So there's, this is my point. What is the point? What are the referendum for? When you say that, what, as you just said, you're trying to get information. You can get information otherwise to the people and let them have a decision by having district meetings with the district council, which have not been formed since the Constitution requires it, and telling them what is good for this and what is bad and what is your decision be, and go back to your elected representatives and talk to them about it. That's why these things are put in the Constitution, so we can avoid having a referendum on every issue. We could, for us to decide and say, well, this is of completely extreme importance. I think the Constitution does allude to that, does say that it might not be in those same words. I'm not quoting it verbatim, but who is to decide what is of extreme importance that we need a referendum? We have a serious problem with the health insurance, as we know. In Cayman, the mandatory system, which has turned the controls over the private sector. The same thing with the pensions. So $2 billion is away from here. That should be here, and that could build 10 ports with the pensions, because it's mandatory and it's sent away. It could be in the government coffers, as it rightly should, as the people's income tax, and put there as every other country does with mandatory pensions. But we didn't do that. So, but anyhow, the point I'm making is this, that the controls, we have turned it over to the men who we elected. So it is for them to decide on many issues. I'm very doubtful on about I was called a referendum man when I used to mention those things long ago, but I was shouted out and down. Also, so that we have to be very careful what we're holding a referendum for. And the people understand it's divisive, and the people will understand that it's political, and that you have to get on one side or the other. If it's a strict yes or no vote, many referendums are held in countries and are called propositions in the United States that are held for 5 or 6 or 8 different things on it that you vote for or you vote down. This will have to be, I guess, a yes or no vote, because to make it simple for people to understand, you're just going to say yes or no. And the people will have to know why they're saying yes or no before in lead-up meetings, which will be like campaign meetings, very similar in each of the 19 districts, because you got to go to the 19 different electoral districts and vote in that referendum. But what I'd like to ask, what are the plans for the spot dock, because that is most useful at the height of our tourist season, and ships bypass, as we often know and we often see, and we lose a lot of money when they bypass it, and we know it needs upgrading, serious upgrading, for many, many years and through many different government administrations. It really has not been upgraded to anything. And I don't think it would cost that much money. Are there plans in this program here to do the piers, to do that immediately? Because you're going to need it, and you're going to need to have it properly fixed up, properly, that it can accept passengers. Because some of the time, with the huge amounts of supply vessels and dredging barges and different things involved in pile driving and different things. You might have to turn away some of the vessels that will be tendering while you're building, and you'd have to turn them towards a spot, not to lose them. I just wonder what are the plans for that, if you can elaborate on that a little bit. If you do know, there has to be some plan to mitigate that. Thank you. I'll shut up and listen on.
Well, sir, as far as spots is concerned, I mean, really, I think you know as much as either Noel or myself know. I think that it's, if you ask my opinion, yes, it needs some upgrading, and I think that on the days that you have even just one or two ships there, it's a pretty big mess. There's a lot that needs to be done to upgrade that area, and I would encourage that whichever way this goes, that spots is catered to try to improve what we have there. I mean, it's not the impression we want everybody to have. I live in that area, so I see any time that the ships are in that area exactly what's going on, and it is quite a bit of a mess and a confusion, to put it in a polite way.
All right, gents, we do have a caller, 949-8037, or toll free if you choose. Good afternoon, you're on Talk Today.
Hello, Sterling.
Yes, sir. How are you?
You're back again. Sterling, listen to me, Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
I know November 14th, right? They got LA going on.
Right.
There's they also have a parliament. Lady with Australia in Cayman now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Compulsory. And listen, Sterling. The bunch of me, Sterling, listen to me. I for the port now. Yeah, but last 2 weeks I can dictate them with. Because I don't hear no pity sorry when milk turnover. Oh, we regret it. In Cuba flourishing, in Jamaica expand. You recall now, north of us, Cuba colonists now. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
In Jamaica, American state. In south of us, Honduras. In El Salvador, wherever the regime going on. In Venezuela, southwest of us. Build the port. Listen, build the port. It's cheaper. Build it now. No remorse. You know something?
Mm-hmm.
And people like they prepared up and funds it up. Build the port. Build lucrative funds and currencies.
Okay.
In land now. About exterior. You know, I understand the cruise ship. You have your casino down, something carrying on. And when they put the port bill, Sterling, we don't go off, you legalize casino, everything, left, right, and center. In the marijuana thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. You crop your walking now.
Right.
And Sterling, listen, I tell you, 2 months ago, I was late. I was in tune, in that going on, but about contribution. But build the port. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks. There's one more call? Nope, not yet. Okay.
So I know we're getting probably kind of close towards the to the end of the show. And if I could just give a little bit of my maybe personal perspective on kind of where we've come from and where we are. I'm not sitting here strictly trying to push for something that is just what to benefit what I'm not trying to say bring as many people as we possibly can, stuff town full of people. If I was sitting here only trying to push for what would benefit myself or my business, I would probably have a view closer to Mr. Johnson, Mr. Bud Johnson, who is a very intelligent guy, where he's said he's for berthing. He thinks there should be maybe one pier, only lock in the better ships, so let's say Royal, Disney, Norwegian, Holland. Let's just focus on those and forget about the ones that are the lower end. If I was looking out just for my company, I would probably have a very similar perspective, and I would say the same thing he does. Some of the lower end budget lines do a lot less for me and our company personally. If I was to really say this is what my bucket list would be, I would steer towards, okay, let's only do it this way. But having said that, I understand fully what those red, white, and blue ships do for the majority of our industry. The majority of the smaller companies, the independent operators, the taxis, they depend on the Carnival ships for a large part of what keeps their families fed, a large part of what keeps them going on a daily basis. Carnival is the only line that comes all year round. A lot of the other lines leave during the summer. They're not here, or they're only here one day a week. Carnival is here 4 to 5 days a week. They do a lot less for our business, and if there was less of Carnival Cruise Line themselves, it wouldn't make a major impact on me. But I know what it means for 80% of the industry, and I know that if you talk to anybody that is a smaller operator, anybody that depends on the volume on the traffic, whether it be tours or buses, water sports, Carnival is a large part of what keeps them in business. And I know that one of our managers, I was talking to her the other day, and I was talking a bit about this, and she said what made her think about it more closely was she went home and she was talking to her son who works in water sports, and she said, these Carnival, they don't spend much and they're such a hassle and it's so much trouble and et cetera, et cetera. And then he said to her, Mom, I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for Carnival. And so I think you have to have a balance on the cruise side as well. You can't just say, okay, we only want the most exclusive ships. I mean, there is a volume that has to come through to make all of this viable, and not just for me. We have to look at this as what is the best for the industry.
For all of us.
For all of us. And trust me, if I was steering this project, I would also say, well, let's not route it through this side of the terminal, this side of the port. Let's feed it through closer to our side. But that's not what it's about. And none of us are here trying to say, let's find our best personal solution. We have to find what's the best solution for everybody.
Most people need to reflect deeply on what Chris just said. In considering what affects others. Just because some people are doing well in a certain area, there are other people around it need an opportunity to do well in their area as well.
All right. There's a caller online. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon, Chris and Mr. March there.
Good afternoon.
This is Paula. I'm a small taxi tour operator. Now, with me working extensively with the airport and also with the cruise ship port, now I know that we said 60 to 70% taxi tour, you have the shops and stuff as in Caymanians. But I also want to just quickly point out that on the dock, you have the local water sports, dockside water sports, which is a lot of local Caymanians like Darna Kelly, Captain Britain, you've got Captain Dallas, that even though they are a part of the Land and Sea Co-op, they're into a rotation system. So you're not going to get a trip every day through, the Land and Sea Co-op rotation. Or it's not like the olden days where you could go by the hotels like Captain Marvin and Dallas and them did. Your competition wasn't as fierce as it is today. So what they do, Dwayne, they have about 8 to 9 ladies, Caymanian ladies. They're being paid $9, about $9 US a person. I'm going to give you a rough now, right, Dwayne? Don't kind of hold me to it. I'm giving you a rough. Mm-hmm. They would sell Stingrays City to people coming off the boats, off the ships, that didn't buy an excursion from the cruise ship. Now, the boat captain, these boat owners now, when you take out transportation, $9 a person, you got fuel, you need I think it's so many deckhands per 3 or 4 passengers, you need to have a couple of deckhands, and your boat captain, you're coming out with a net of maybe about $20 a person. Then, when you have us in transportation, we're not just the driver. We are going to, this is a trickle-down effect that we are going to bring people down now, Royal Palms, Calico Jacks. We're going to bring people to Hell, Turtle Farm, Pedro Castle. So throughout the whole island, not just small business owners, right? But this is not only helping the private, but helping the public sector as well. That if you had to depend on what you were getting just as a stay-over customer. Now, Dwayne and Mr. Kakano and Mr. Noel, you know very well, Cayman is the culinary capital of the Caribbean. And if you ever been downtown on a day when there was no cruise ships, You remember after Hurricane Ivan, we were so glad to see them. It's a dead town. So if you just can't depend on the stay over, the domestic, because they have a longer time here. But then think about it. They're not going to be able to go into all the shops, all the restaurants while they're here. So you need to have a balance between mass and domestic. But at the same time, I tell people that I think we need to get together and to see, we're not tearing down anybody, but to see how best we can do this project, as in, remember now, employment, but as well protecting our precious environment. Because what we also have to look at, if you notice, if you've been listening to the news, England is about to Brexit, right? They want that money we owe them maybe by 2020. Then, in addition to that, right now, the Premier, remember he had a situation up in, England, where England wanted us to have a beneficial ownership, and we pulled away from the table because we said that, we believe this should be a global standard. So we are under attack. So if you can tell me that you have a safety net on social services where we can barely maintain as it is, of all these people eliminate the cruise tourism, you tell me where we're going to generate the volume, the millions that cruise tourism brings in. Mm-hmm. And also, with me doing tour many days, I have people coming off on scooters that they have handicap, but they're either handicapped,
right,
some form of disability, and with the tender up against the boat, it's bouncing up and down. It's not a very good ride.
Yes,
so it's very hard for those people.
All right.
So I just believe that we do need the birthing facilities. Georgetown is the place for it. It's very metropolitan. You've got access to transportation. You've got great infrastructure. So I just believe we got to sit down, work this out, and think about what is best for everybody. Because I don't think we got into business to lose. But a lot of companies that are fighting against this, I find that they have more than one entity that generates revenue for them. I don't have that. And majority of my business doing are coming in through cruise ship.
Mm-hmm.
So I really believe that this has got to be a win-win for not only just the wealthy or the special interest, but make sure that this is a balance for everybody. Anyway,
thanks very much.
You all have a good day. God bless, okay?
Blessings.
Thank you.
All right. Final question from one of our listeners in relation to the proposed numbers. We're at 1.7, we're told, roughly, on cruise passengers. According to the some statements, we're going to increase it by 500,000-600,000 in order to make this sustainable. Any thoughts from our panelists in relation to that? Having that number of percentage increase and the physical volume of passengers coming through?
I think it's just going to create more opportunities. We have a very underdeveloped tourism product when you consider the island as a whole. If we can get infrastructure to help access the eastern districts a little easier, it opens up. There's so much untapped potential. I think the entrepreneurial spirit that's here will take advantage of it.
I think that if we're able to spread the visits further through the week, where you don't have 1 or 2 days that are really jammed as we have now, I think that you can see that you're not going to have a much different maximum traffic flow into town than you're probably seeing now. There may be one or a day here and there where you do in the peak of the season. Hopefully, they will be able to do what they're talking about, which is to spread it out more, so that your maximum number grows, but not necessarily just the maximum for a single day.
Right.
And I think that something that something else that with adding extra time in port, Cayman right now is what you would call a one tour port, you pretty much have just enough time to make that one run of getting people up to a destination through and back. In it, being able to add extra time in port gives people the opportunity to either to try 2 tours or for the same...
But how much extra time, sorry, Mr. Brown, you said it's only about half an hour more on average that the dock
they're saying that it would be on average about an hour more, but an hour more would mean you're not spending... So if you go from 4 hours to 5 hours, part of that 4 hours is being spent in a line either trying to get out of the ship or being in a line trying to get back. Freeing up time where you can get on easier so that you're not wasting 30, 40, 60 minutes trying to get back onto the ship on top of getting an extra hour makes a massive difference. And I know we all see it in town. I know it's not everybody works in the industry, not everybody's in town, so we can understand you don't see the rush and the panic that a lot of the passengers have. But they are watching their watch. If there is a 3 o'clock last tender, as they call it, from 2 o'clock, they're looking, how do I get back? How do I get back? I don't want to miss it. So,
and then that increase from, say, 1.7 to 2.5 million passengers, as an assumption, how realistic is that we would be able to move to that number of passengers and see that percentage increase?
I don't know if there's going to be an increase that's going to be that large
initially,
initially,
in one shot.
Yeah. And as Mr. Kirkconnell stated, this allows you to manage the numbers and spread it out not only over the island but over time. Instead of having 6-7 ships in one day.
Yeah, I think we've also said it's not, and from my perspective, it's not let's just get as many people as possible. It's let's make sure we've protected this industry so that we don't lose. And it's not scaremongering. We already saw that for the first half of last year, we were on a downward trend, almost 10%, whereas the industry is growing. We were not. The only reason we had an increase last year was because of redirected traffic from the eastern hurricanes. I think that the eventual growth to that kind of a number is probably a long-term goal. I don't think it will happen overnight. But we definitely know that the Oasis class ships that are sailing past us now would bring an extra between 6,000 and 12,000 passengers a week, just from what's already in the area. Right. And a lot of people doubt what the spending power is on those ships. If you just try to compare it to what is the most famous ship in the history of the world, it was the Titanic. Okay, the Titanic did not have a great ending, but all of the news, the hype was this is the largest ship that's been built. All the wealthiest people in the world wanted to get on this largest ship. It was in every paper, it was news around the world. There are Titanics in the making right now. There are Titanics as far as the size, the glamour that everybody gets. Everybody wants to be on those newer, larger ships. If you look at Las Vegas, they have the old strip and they have the new strip. The new strip is where all the huge, new, fancy hotels are. That's where everybody wants to stay. They'll go and take a look at the old strip in Las Vegas because it has a historic value. But that's not where everybody wants to be. They want to be in the bigger casinos, the larger hotels, the fancy ones, the brand new ones. And it's the same with the ships. They have more amenities. They have larger casinos, larger everything. That's where everybody wants to be, and that's where the higher tickets are sold. That's where the higher spending passengers are. We saw it before the Oasis when the Freedom class ships came through. What you're seeing on those ships is what we saw on those ships is what we're missing, but to an even greater magnitude on the Oasis ships and the new mega ships.
Well, gents, certainly appreciate you sharing, Mr. March or Chris. If either have final closing comment, by all means.
I'll leave it with you,
I just have to say, just taking off from where Chris left off with these new ships, it's not about the numbers, it's about the quality of the cruise passenger that is coming into port off of these ships. It makes no sense to try to cater to a mix of passengers that does not include them. We have always prided ourselves on going after the high-end visitor.
Yeah, I think that the idea of you have to choose between quality or quantity is something of the past. Right now, you have the option to get the quality in quantity, and that's what these new ships are doing. And it's something that it is its own animal, its own beast. That's what it is, and that's where where this industry is going, and that's where you will find the better passengers, and you will find more passengers,
and to get them consistently.
All right. Well, gents, thanks very much for sharing the afternoon with me. And
it's always a pleasure.
Oh my, I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Have a safe, relaxing, rewarding weekend. And maybe next week not only be productive, but one day you can see and look back on and be lasting legacy. Hey, to our listeners, come back on Monday. Got something special in store with you as we partner with the Department of Children and Family Services. Is going to be part of our discussion as we are live. Until then, be blessed.